title of today's episode is the Water Management Enhancement Projects. And Bryan is our special guest. I stole this picture from his Facebook page. Shows him on top of, what mountain is this, Bryan?
So this is called Mount Eleanor. It's in just outside the Olympic National Forest up in Washington.
That is an impressive picture.
It certainly is dramatic, and all the elements were there. Plenty of snow, fresh snow, and the clouds below and the mountains around it. So, or actually, those are island land masses behind me.
That is gorgeous. All right, so to kind of capture what we're going to talk about today, we really want to take the conversation of water management beyond the weather track, right? So what we're going to talk about today is a situation where a customer or contractor already has weather track on their site. And now what, right? Water management, as we so often talk about, is a process. It's not a product. And so we really want to drill down into, once you're managing the site and you've got weather track on your site, how can you continue to evolve that process? How can you continue to better manage that water? Or if savings is your metric, right? If water savings is what you're after, how can you save even more? Because what we see with the addition of weather track is pretty typical savings between 20 and sometimes 60%. I like to quote in the 20s when I'm talking about it. But once you are running the weather track and you're running that weather-based irrigation, you've already achieved that savings. Maybe you need to drop that water bill even lower. Today, we're going to talk about some of the tools that weather track provides that will allow you to examine those options with your customers. Some things you might not have thought of that can help continue to drive those water bills even lower. And the one that Bryan brought up first and foremost was mapping. Can you tell us a little bit about the mapping project that we were talking about yesterday, how you were using the maps?
Yeah, so the medical group that I was working with and have been for a number of years pulled the trigger on doing upgrades, and they chose to have Green Tech Services, part of SiteOne, do the swap out. So I was able to basically plan the 26 controller rollout from the comfort of the office back the first week of January. Because I had the site map, I could see exactly where the controllers were. It provided me with the serial numbers for verification. And once I would get to the site, I could interact with that controller and perform anything I needed to then and there. So, and what I also did as part of that was I took photos so that in the case where I might have had some difficulty in finding the controller, that added piece of those photos helps the next person who needs to find that controller that much easier.
Absolutely. And that kind of highlights what I am talking about on this slide here, right? The idea that really the mapping doesn't help us save a ton of water in the schedule, but it does save time, and time is money. And can benefit all the different types of users who might be interacting with this system. So using those mapping tools for sure can and will benefit the everyday irrigation manager. In my nerdy certified irrigation or certified water manager class, the first thing they teach you is make a map and don't waste water looking for where the water is running. Right. And so having those mapping tools, having everything identified is an important part of the daily management. It also benefits the owner of that of that controller, because I can tell you as an irrigation tech, even if maps of a site exist, when you change contractors, those maps go with the contractors. It doesn't live as a permanent fixture on site. They're not really viewed as owned by the owner of the controller. And when you put that information in weather track, It will help any contractor or anybody coming in trying to learn the system, because they eliminate just hours and hours of hunt and find all of the different elements, right? Which can inevitably save you dollars. And as a tech, I was often on other people's sites. I was called out in the middle of the night to turn off an emergency issue or respond to a critical issue. And having that information available at my fingertips would have been a godsend back in the day.
Yeah.
And then
this medical group.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, this medical group has a new irrigation manager coming on board, and so having this is going to make it much simpler for that person. And the manager of the landscape portion of the corporate, medical campuses was saying, hey, the mapping is going to make it so much better, but we also want to take it one step farther and even improve on what information we currently have. We want to show every single valve box location on every single site. So that takes time. However, you can do it right in the field.
That's exactly it. And that's what I kind of like about it, right? We are providing a feature that is included with your weather track that good water managers can turn into a billable service. They can, it does take time. It does take work to get that in. And customers see the value in that and understand that that doesn't happen for free. So as part of a contractor who might be looking to offer water management services, I think that beyond the installation of the smart controllers, this is a great place to start. It also, in your example, shines a light on how it can help your non-irrigation site managers, right? That medical group wants to see all of that stuff. They don't touch the components, but now they have a list of all of the assets that they own and manage, which is a huge sustainability initiative and really shines a light on the value of the service that they're providing or receiving. Remote managers like yourself, you can call and help a contractor on site, right? Hey, I see you're right next to where the backflow is. Can you just pop over to the backflow and turn that off as part of the troubleshooting? So lots of different scenarios where mapping, while not really focused on the scheduling, really is part of the management and is something that people are willing to pay to have done. And when we look at that, let's see here, come on. When we look at it on the feature level, right, it can be available through the app. This is what we were talking about. You go out, using the app, you can see yourself on the site and drop pins where all of the critical components are on your irrigation system, all of the assets that you manage. And you can collect the critical information about those assets. You can take pictures of the types of valves or the valve locations, the types of backflows, all the different things, including non-irrigation components. Some of my users like to mark the signs that they manage on site or the plant materials that they have on site. So it's not limited to irrigation components using this mapping tool. And
so
go ahead.
Yeah, so one thing I wanted to mention here under location, you can put notes in there. So that, and I'm going to do this, I haven't done this yet, but part of the service is I'm going to mention when the upgrades were done as a reference. So if an irrigation tech is out there on the site, he knows, okay, this is when it was done. So from a troubleshooting standpoint, if he's having communication issues, he can communicate that to the factory, and customer support can also see that same information. But you could also have it where a backflow device is listed, the exact model. So if you do know you need to make repairs to it, you don't have to get the proverbial answer from distribution going, well, what's the model number and what's the size? It's all right there. He goes, oh, just a minute, let me pull up on my app, and the notes are right there. Or even programming changes.
Absolutely. The maintenance history of these assets is a key component of the ongoing management, and just having notes attached to each asset is an incredibly valuable thing especially if you incorporate it in your standard management process, right? You can look at when a valve was replaced. And if you have done this properly, you can identify what type of valve, what size of valve you're talking about, right? So if you get an alert for that valve, you can quickly see the valve and know when you respond to that alert that you have the right components, that you've stopped by SiteOne and gotten the right diaphragm or the right solenoid. And again, make yourself more efficient. Make sure that we're minimizing the time that it takes to provide high-level water management services. So I think that that's a key point, as well as the visibility from the central, right? We create this map that then our customers, the owners of this system, the medical center that you referred to, or the corporate campus, can look and see. When I did this for a corporate campus here locally, they had me map out the location of every station on site so that they can use that feature and know, you know, if something's running when it shouldn't be, they can easily identify what station, what controller, all of that. Makes their process of management and communication much more efficient. And then also you can see all of the information that gets logged for all of these assets. So not only visible from the app, but visible from the central as well. So it really does just increase the visibility of the services that are being provided. So this is relatively new to a lot of the WeatherTrack users, especially integration into the app. And so this is something that if you're not using, please try. This is super easy to do and a super valuable addition to the services that you're providing out on site. And spring startups are a great time to do that. You're already walking the site. So it will be a great time to kind of see that. And Sean asks, is there an upgrade coming to the asset management to be able to roll through the pictures on an asset? And yes, we are looking at how to make that more available. One of the things that I would encourage you to do is make sure that you have the right access, the document manager access on your WeatherTrack login. One of the things that you bump up against with collecting all of this information is on weathertrack.net, the document manager where you store all of those pictures is sometimes not turned on in your access and permissions. So definitely, if you're not seeing that stuff at weathertrack.net, contact customer service and make sure that you are allowed access to those features. All right, let's move on. There we go. So enough with mapping. Let's talk about flow sensors. Bryan, adding flow to a site, in my eyes, should be step 2 for sure. Like, I am a strong believer in adding flow sensors. What is your experience with flow sensors, and do you do that as a fair amount of routine in what you offer?
So I agree. Flow is the next critical piece when it comes to managing water. Water is not it's not an endless supply. Even though the pictures I show on my Facebook page have plenty of snow in the mountains, right? We have more people coming, and that resource is not available. So for the ability to know on a site how much water you're using, from both a budgetary standpoint, but getting a flow device installed helps set a platform for knowing what's actually in the ground, because many times I'm involved with sites that are retrofit. In fact, 80 to 90% of the time I spend in the field is retrofitting. And all the tools you see here on the slide allow you to connect up flow sensing devices, whether it's just a simple flow sensor coupled with a master valve which may already be present, or maybe both those devices are present and we're using a different platform, or going with a flow 3 that can put everything in one cut, and it's a simple retrofit process. But so much information can be gathered to help understand your system from both pressure and flow, so that you can have those conversations about where am I using my water, and how can we save more water. You can say, well, this zone 25 is your largest zone. It's a turf zone. Okay, but that's right front and center of our medical facility. We want to keep that. So what about these smaller zones? If we have 15 of them, what can we do with those zones to reduce our water?
Right. And I always say you can't manage what you don't measure, right? And in our last episode, we talked about water blindness and just not seeing where the water is going. And adding these flow sensors, it is a process. It is something that involves digging up the main line and cutting in. But the flow sensors that you see here will track the gallons as they're being used in your system. And I think that that's hugely valuable, right? Why do I need a flow sensor? To eliminate this stuff from happening, to provide visibility into these types of issues. It's hard to say that you're an expert water manager when your irrigation systems look like this. And this can be the cost of thousands of gallons, millions of gallons, thousands of dollars. Look at the rate at which this water is hitting this drainage system. It's just a catastrophic protection that is invaluable. It's a great insurance program. And when you add a flow sensor, not only can you count the gallons, but we can identify places where your infrastructure has failed and provide solutions to minimize your risk and your exposure to those events, right? You can monitor the system at all times. And if your main line breaks, which we know is the biggest source of lost water in irrigation, because it's your pressurized main line that's just going to cook water through that main line until somebody finds it. And in my experience, although sometimes it does rocket up into the air to 20 feet, sometimes it happens on a patch of the property that isn't very well traveled. And you can lose water for weeks, even months, before anybody realizes that that's happening. So mainline protection is a huge part.
And station level alerts are really good from a water management standpoint, because so many times people think that they see water flowing. That's an absolute emergency. Now, certainly a mainline break, right, or an extended leak, that is, because that's always under pressure and it's going to flow until you turn it off. So if you have a master valve, you can do that, but it puts then the landscape at jeopardy. But if you have a station level alert, right, then, so right there, being able to define where the leak is on the system helps you better assess, how do I deal with that, right? It's Monday, I just got this alert. I don't have a crew scheduled till Wednesday. I can simply make a call to my customer and say, hey, we found there's a leak on your system. It's in the back portion of your property on a zone. We have turned that zone off. We have a crew that's going to be normally scheduled to be there on Wednesday. Is that okay with you? And if the customer says no, and your contract states anything additional time spent, I can have my irrigation tech come out and address that earlier. And if we do that, this will be the cost. If you wait until Wednesday, the only cost would be, no travel time to the site. It would just be assessing the issue. And if the tools were available by our regular crew, they can take care of it. And then the customer feels like, they're a part of the process, not just having the landscape maintenance company shove a repair cost down their throat.
Right. And really it's a monumental shift from reactive management to proactive management, right? You get to see those things up front as soon as they happen. Not a night goes by of broken irrigation that type of thing isn't brought to your attention. And as a manager, you can decide the proper protocol. And as a customer, as an end user, you can decide with your contractor, do I pay those extra upcharges to have this emergency response, or is it something that can wait till a routine maintenance check? Also, as a contractor, I'll tell you, even if I'm scripted to go out to a site every week and do checks, I might not make it all the way through every station on every controller every week. And so these things can perpetuate across weeks and years. And I like to say that when those big rotor heads are running and one of them's broken, it can waste a bathtub full of water every minute that it runs. And if that goes on for a week, that's a lot of bathtubs of water going down the drain. And so,
so it helps prioritize what the needs are and what the issues are. So exactly. Because we all have 24 hours in the day, and typically maintenance contractors or facility people are working 5 to maybe 6 days a week in the season.
And so the irrigation system runs at night, right? So you're not likely to have, hopefully not likely to have your customers see that kind of thing. So the people out walking the neighborhood or using the corporate campus aren't around when the irrigation system is running. So there's just not eyes on those types of issues that can be very serious water cost. All right. So that is why I think flow is a hugely important part of it. I think that mapping and flow are really the two next big steps that as a water manager, I would be pushing to really provide quality water management services, to provide the tools that I need to ratchet down that water bill to zero waste, which is what we're looking for. Now, if you're looking to continue to drive those water bills down, there are a lot of solutions that you can find in the landscape if you're a smart and savvy water manager. And to have this conversation, I'd like to say, look at the scheduling engine, right? The WeatherTrack scheduling engine or automated by WeatherTrack basically just applies the science of irrigation. So we learn a lot about the science of irrigation by looking at the factors that WeatherTrack is considering. And if I wanted to drive my usage down, I can adjust some of the elements that are represented here to really do that. And that would involve a station by station assessment of kind of how you're irrigating now and what we can be doing better. Which brings me to one of my favorite reports. This estimated usage report is a great tool that WeatherTrack provides that helps me do that, right? I'm already running WeatherTrack. I've already got flow management in place. Now, how do I look at all of my stations and decide where my next biggest opportunity to drive that water use down is? And the estimated usage report, as you can see here, provides just an amazing level of analysis to how we are irrigating that site. So you can see over on the first page of the report, plant or irrigation broken down by plant type or irrigation broken down by sprinkler type. We can really start to see the opportunity here. Look at this, 63% of the water going to this site is going to that cool season turf, that high water use plant that people love to put in so much. And if I'm talking to my customer about how to drive down their water bills, maybe addressing those stations' plants are on the top of the list. You can also see water distribution by sprinkler type and see that the spray heads are using a bulk of the water and examine more efficient options there. But even better, on the second page here, we get a, whoa, just kidding, come on back. End show. Cut that out. Go back. Okay, sorry. Technical difficulties here. You can really drill down station by station and see an estimated usage for each station individually. We can find out which stations are using the most water and use that as our guidepost to really start the investigation. You know, I can see here that this station is using 5 times as much water as its neighbor. Why is that, right? As a water manager, I can really drill down and start to ask myself the hard questions. And
before we move on, we move on to this next slide, if I can make a comment about the reports, you know, so many times, whether you're hiring a mechanic to work on your car or an HVAC guy, right? In this case, it's water management, and you're interacting with people who have more than just the landscape maintenance contractor to look over, right? They're looking over apartment complexes, corporate campuses. So they may not always understand the lingo that we're so used to using in our jobs. And this simple report, most people have seen bar graphs and pie graphs. And so it's like, it really simplifies the exchange of good information and supports the professional landscape contractor and irrigation manager to say, here's the information, and based on this information, these are the recommendations. So it really takes any of that, is, looking at your contractor a little sideways and going, does he really know what he's talking about? I mean, he's a really nice guy, but well, I don't understand that. So I think a lot of times when people don't understand, they might think that they're not getting good information.
Right. Absolutely. And it's hard to argue against the data. The data really does provide the structure of a conversation that is really just eye-opening in many, many cases. And if we are looking to that scheduling engine, I didn't want to just gloss over the solutions end of it, right? If I find my high water user, I identify which station needs to be adjusted, and maybe it's a different solution every time, right? Maybe that solution is identified as a change in the plant type, right? Our cool season turf, the Kentucky bluegrass, is the highest water user in your landscape. And so the fact that it is also the most common plant that people have in their yard means that we are using a lot. And I love turf. Don't get me wrong. I am not bad-mouthing turf, but turf where it's needed, right? If I can take one station that isn't a sports field or an active play area and switch that to a more reasonable water consumer, a more reasonable water consumption plant, then that can make a huge impact on one station at a time. Go xeric, for crying out loud. You still need to irrigate that stuff, but it can just dramatically drop the water bills.
We had an HOA that has five weather track controllers, and they were always whining or complaining about how this one zone was always dry. And when I went out there one day with the landscape maintenance contractor, I said, well, show me that zone. It was a south-facing, not flat turf. It was a sloped turf. And the way it had been designed and installed, it made it very difficult to run water for probably more than 5 minutes before water would be running. And so we said, well, we're going to have to change either the way we irrigate or change the location of these heads so that we can better address the slope. Unless, of course, you want to change the slope or rip out the turf and put in trees. So it's a conversation piece. Absolutely.
Another thing that I can't emphasize enough is if you're looking at a high water user, sometimes advanced irrigation stuff can be the solution. Just providing an audit and understanding the distribution uniformity of your irrigation system can be a game changer. If you have to drop your efficiency on your weather track programs to compensate for stretched spacing or poor design, sometimes just changing the configuration of heads on a station can save you a ton of money, can save you a ton of water on that station, because we do have to water to the least efficient area to keep the whole station healthy and happy, right? And so sometimes just exposing bad irrigation practice by an installer, or really even long-term maintenance, a change in pressure has happened to the site. We don't have to point fingers, but sometimes that efficiency is the number one culprit of water waste. And so then
one of the things that controllers in is that if you look, as you're talking about efficiency, putting in a high efficiency nozzle, whether it be a rotating multi-stream nozzle like an MP rotator or Rainbird rotary nozzle or Toros, typically the rate at which the water gets applied decreases. So we only have 24 hours a day to irrigate. So a caution would be, when you start down that high efficiency product solution that you can find yourself with not enough time in which to irrigate. And so Absolutely. There are some tools that WeatherTrack has.
That's where I was going to go with
that.
Keep rolling. I know you're going to say what I want you to say.
So the OptiFlow XR controller would maximize the available water supply in your main line, whether it's a 2-inch line or a 6-inch line. You need to have flow devices installed, but it could help then run multiple stations from either single or multiple controllers on a single site. And it takes that issue many times, not always, but many times to a point where you can manage that 24-hour water window very simply. And then it becomes a matter, if you did run up against a water window issue, then it's a matter of prioritizing which stations and which areas of the landscape would be watered first, and which ones might not need to be watered as frequently as we think that they need to be watered.
Exactly right. So just to summarize, when you're going to high efficiency type of hardware, it does expand the run times on those. It slows down the distribution, so everything goes into the ground and doesn't run off. But OptiFlow will help you if you embark on that project and run out of runtime. A good solution to bring that back into the realm of reality is OptiFlow, that will optimize your mainline usage and keep you running as efficiently as possible. All right, Brian, we are out of time. So I am going to quickly bounce it over. Wait, before I do, I did have one question that I wanted to address. Lynn asked, I have 5 controllers mapped out, but not for the stations. What does it take to add these with our landscape manager? Need time and hours to do this? Absolutely. So nothing on the WeatherTrack side, Lynn. This is a feature that is provided with what you get. So your landscape manager, if they have the app, has access to drop those pins and start doing that. But just know that that does take time. That is a process, especially hunting down valves in the field can be a very strenuous process. A lot of times those are under bushes or grown over in the turf area. So it's not always as easy as just, hey, where is this stuff? Sometimes it takes time and effort to investigate. But from the WeatherTrack technology side, you're already equipped with everything you need. So I hope that helps. And now, Brian, I'm going to take it over to you, where I ask this question every week of my special guest. What does WeatherTrack save you?
It saves me my customer. And what I mean by that is when I'm involved with a customer about a solution in their irrigation and we get WeatherTrack as their solution, it keeps me involved with that customer. It gives me a reason to connect with the customer and be a partner to them in their business. So as opposed to just selling them a 24-station controller, hang it on the wall, and we're done. If they have any issues, it's, well, that's under warranty or that's not under warranty, right? But this, when a customer comes back and says, hey, I'm having an issue here, how can you help me with that? And I can go to reports, I can go to the platform and the dashboard if they give me access, and we can continue that conversation and help them grow their business and improve their bottom line.
I like it. That's what I like to hear. Bryan, once again, thank you for making time to join me today. And to all of you listening out there, I certainly appreciate you logging in. Your continued attendance makes this all worth it. So thank you for tuning in, and I look forward to seeing you next week. And Jose, I see your questions, and if you will email me at bcoffee@hydropoint.com, I can provide you the documentation about the low water use plants that you're looking for. So thanks, everybody. Talk to you next week.
Thank you.